Welcome to the Wonk podcast. This week's guest is showrunner Kevin Etten. We'll discuss writing for the Harvard Lampoon, working on Desperate Housewives, and the differences between showrunning Workaholics and Ghosted. Enjoy.
Junior high is, I think, when I really got into, like, I think junior high is when I think the first thing where I was like, whoa, this is going to blow my brain was, like 5th or 6th grade. And yeah, my older cousins showed me Airplane. And I was like, oh man, my head exploded. And like, and actually what had happened was that there was I was staying with my cousins who were older and cool, and they told their mom, like, get Kevin the movie Airplane, he'll love it. She rented the movie Airport, which is what Airplane is a direct parody of.
Okay.
So I saw Airport first.
And you were bored?
And I was like, what is this? Yeah, and then when I saw Airplane, which is like a direct beat by beat parody of Airport, though nobody's really seen when I saw Airplane's direct rip off of Airport, my head truly like exploded. You
saw like the mechanics of it, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the mechanics, but also it's like, I mean, if I had just seen Airplane, I would have been like, whoa, this is I've never seen a comedy like this where the jokes are just
rapid fire.
Yeah, rapid fire and crazy and all over the place. But then to also have all the references from the kind of bad B movie that it's based on, it was like it was an added bonus. But then yeah, like junior high, just watching SNL and, you know, just loving SNL so much. And I dressed up as my buddy and I did. We were like Hans and Franz for Halloween one year, and it was just like, that was really when it started. Like, it was like, I mean, never ever thinking that it's a career or anything.
Yeah. Not even acting wise, not even like, oh, I want to be on SNL one day.
No, because you know what? It was a weird thing where my sister was like the actor of the family, and I either had like too much of a macho bullshit-y kind of thing to like be like, you know, it was always like, I think secretly I was interested in it, but yeah, like couldn't, I don't know, like didn't either have like the guts to do it, or I think also it was just like I was so into sports and like that I spent so much of my time doing that I never really considered it. But it you know what it is really is that because we moved a couple times, everywhere I went I was like so desperate to make friends, because you know, like you start 8th grade and you don't know anybody. It's like, yeah, okay, how do I make friends? And like sports was the safe path.
Yeah.
You know, so I wasn't like, I'm going to go put myself on a limb and be like the hockey player who is also an actor, which is cooler and better. And I would have enjoyed it, but I just didn't have the, you know, strength of self at that point to do that. But like the first time I really started writing comedy was, I had friends. So Minneapolis is a big advertising town, a lot of small boutique, like good ad agencies. And so I had friends whose parents were, you know, copywriters and in that game. And so then it was like, oh, that's a job. People write ads. And at that time, I think the Sports Center ads were like, I was like, oh, these are so funny. And so I was like, oh, I want to write Sports Center ads. So started, you know, kind of like writing versions of those, not really showing them to anybody. And then I think the first time I was like, oh, maybe I could do something with this was at Christmas, people would send out like those letters, like, our family is, you know, doing great. And it would be like a kind of a list of accomplishments that our family did that year. Was this thing that, I mean, people sent to each other in Edina. And so I wrote like a fake one of those for our family, like, you know, like a parody one of those where it was very heightened about how amazing our family was. And my friend's dad, who ran a big ad agency, read it and was like, called me and was like, oh, this is so funny. Like, and so it was just the first time where I was like, okay, I can.
And he offered you a job, kind of?
No. I mean, he kind of was like, if you want to come and have an internship or, like, I mean, it was an opening. Like, it was like hey, let's have lunch and, keep me, like, use me as a resource if you need me. So that was like the first thing where I was like, oh, I love this. Like, I spent so much time working on it. And, it was like, okay, this is something. And then, in college, I went and didn't really know what I wanted to do and thought I was
at Harvard
and was trying to like make the hockey team, but wasn't really good enough.
So you went there without a major yet, or what?
No, I went there. So I went there. I mean, at that point in my life, I still thought I would play college hockey, or kind of wanted to. And so I almost, after my senior year of high school, I was like, I had gotten into Harvard, but I was thinking about going and playing junior hockey. So I like made a team. I made the Helena Ice Pirates.
Whoa.
Which is like,
congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Which is, it's like guys who are 17 to like 21-year-old dudes who are all trying to like get a college scholarship and kind of hang on, or just guys that are pieces of shit and just want to get drunk and play hockey, and then that's it. Point being, it's like a pretty, the league I would have played in was pretty rough. Not, the hockey wasn't that great. And at some point I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not going to Helena. Like, that's no. So I went and I spent a year or two trying to make the Harvard team, but they're a really good team, and I just didn't have, I didn't have the goods. The scouting report on me was like, great hands, slow as shit, which is true.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Happy Gilmore kind of.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't have the foot speed, but I had a buddy that got into the Harvard Lampoon, which is this comedy magazine, and I went, oh man, that's interesting. And he was a cool, smart guy who's Matt Warburton, my friend, who like has done awesome stuff out here. He was on The Simpsons forever, and then he ran the Mindy Project, but he and I were on the same floor our freshman year, and he was like, I want to be in the Lampoon. And he would watch Letterman every night, or he would tape Letterman every night and then watch it in the morning. Like, he was just a huge comedy nerd, like really studied it. And he came in like knowing like, I want to do this. And so I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then kind of what happened was that I had a good writing teacher my freshman year. Everybody had to take a writing class, and I had a writing teacher who just said, like, you should do something. Like, you should, you can do it. You can write, so you should use it. Like, join a newspaper, get on a magazine, just do something. You're pretty good at this. So that kind of gave me the like, okay, I'll try for the Lampoon. And so I did, and then that's like a kind of a scary process, because it's the first time, you have to get in, you have to write a bunch of comedy pieces, and you have to go and show your work to the people that are already on staff. So like, it's a semester long thing where you write a bunch of just comedy pieces. They can be whatever, like little plays, little parodies of books, whatever. Like, it's just, but like showing those to these people who are pretty funny and good and smart is scary, and really, like, you gotta kind of it's the first time you start hearing like, this isn't good, and
Oh, wow.
this doesn't work, and
Because it's not your family anymore.
yeah, right. No, you're getting it from these just people who are just weird, old, kind of scary looking, smart men and women. But that was a good, I mean, it's good training to have that start when you're, whatever, 19.
How high did you get up into that?
So I got on the magazine when I was my sophomore year, and then you're just kind of in it, and you can do whatever you want. And you put out like 6 magazines a year, and you'll do parodies of like the school newspaper. So you can kind of be as in it, like you can be as involved or not involved or whatever. But yeah, I spent all my time there. Once I was on it, and it just became my whole world was like it was just all my closest friends where we spent all our time. They have this cool old building on campus, so you're just like,
That's dope.
yeah, big parties.
Was it like a futile, stupid gesture a little bit? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, dope.
I know it totally is, and it's the same building, and like,
Oh.
I mean, yeah, they didn't shoot in the actual building, but yeah, it is kind of like that. It's like you're just getting drunk and hanging out with your friends and occasionally writing stuff.
Any stories you got?
What did we? You weirdly get to meet like famous people. Like they'll have big parties where they invite. Like we had the author George Plimpton came right before I got on. Randy Macho Man Savage came.
Whoa.
And like partied.
Oh, it's not just like, hey guys, he just stays and is this part of the.
Oh yeah, so they'll invite celebrities, whoever, and induct them to become like an honorary member, and then have a big party.
Oh.
And they'll party all night and stay and get drunk, and yeah, it's awesome. But I think the thing that was craziest was like there were a couple older graduates who would come back, who worked on Saturday Night Live. So we would then they would like take us, a couple of us would get to go down to New York and see shows. So I think when we were seniors, we got to go down to New York and like see a taping, and you're like, whoa, this is incredible. Or one time we got to go to this guy, an old graduate, this guy Paul Sims, who created News Radio and was this really talented writer. He came back because I don't think he was working at that time, and he had just finished News Radio, so he seemed like the coolest guy. Where like he at this point, was just so rich, but just came back and like would just sit and like smoke cigarettes and read newspapers all day, and like he like skateboarded. And I remember he came back and he was just cool. He was not like, he was not an asshole, just a normal-ish dude. Yeah, I remember he came back and he like gave us his credit card, and we got to go buy like an Xbox and a bunch of shit.
Wow.
Because he was like, I want to play Xbox. We were like, oh, this guy is incredible. But then he took us to, he knew Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall, and so he took us to a Kids in the Hall like live show.
Incredible.
And we got to meet all those guys, and so you were like, whoa, this, these guys are cool. And you start just learning about all the like guys who had gone out either to, Hollywood or New York and had done it. So you start watching The Simpsons and like learning the names of like, oh, that's Bill Oakley. And then Bill Oakley would come for some party and you'd get to meet him and talk to him, and so that was when you start really like, I hadn't gotten into it thinking I would, I hadn't joined the Lampoon like being like, I'm going to be a television writer, but then you start meeting these people who have these careers that seem pretty cool, and it becomes like a real, okay, this is possible.
Well, how'd you get Letterman?
Well, so what happened was that I had a writing partner when I started right after college, Jake Lentz, who's the the greatest guy who's now an ER doctor. But he was this insanely funny guy, and we started writing together, and he really he kicked my ass into gear in terms of like finishing scripts and like taking advantage of opportunities. So we had an opportunity when we were young to get read on this show called Ed, which was a NBC hour-long show. And he was like, they're reading people, you know, like, let's write an Ed script. And I was like, oh, come on, man. Like, well, nothing's going to happen. Like, he's like, I'm like, and we got like 4 days. Like, I don't know. And he's like, let's just, come on, just fucking do it. Like, what's the worst thing that happened? So we locked ourselves in our apartment in West Hollywood and like stayed up all night, 3 nights in a row, wrote this script, this Ed script. And then a couple months later, the creators of Ed had read it and liked it and gave us a job. So those guys, Robert Nett and John Beckerman, had been Letterman writers, and Rob was the head of Worldwide Pants, Dave's company. So I worked on Ed for a couple of years, and then when Ed ended, I went to Rob and said, like, you know.
Oh, so you went Ed, then Letterman.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I went to Rob and asked him if I could work on Letterman.
What were you doing before this as a job?
The first jobs were
in LA.
In LA, yeah. My first jobs, I got a couple jobs on hidden camera shows.
Dope.
Which was cool. Yeah.
As what?
As a writer.
Oh.
Yeah. So like it was a totally Spy TV was the first one. Yeah, like 2 or 3 of them, and it was an interesting world. There definitely was like a crew of mostly men that were like hidden camera show writers, and so they had like they just went from like hidden camera show to hidden camera show, and they had like their reel of like the gags that they had written, and yeah, it was cool. I remember one of those guys showed me like the bit they were proudest of, and I think it was for what's the Alan Funt? I'm blanking on. I'll think of it, but it was an old hidden camera show, like the original one, and the bit was a little kid is playing basketball at a public court, and 2 Harlem Globetrotters come over, just in like, not in basketball gear, just in work clothes or whatever, and they're like, what are you doing, little kid? And he's like, I'm playing basketball. And they're like, oh, we've never seen basketball before. Can you show us? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. And he like shows them how to dribble, and so they start like slowly dribbling, and then and then he's like, how do you shoot? He starts showing them how to shoot, and then within a minute or 2, they're like spinning balls on their fingers and dunking, and his face is just like, oh my god, this is incredible! Like, you guys are amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, so like I did that for about 6 or 9 months, trying to like get jobs. So then during that time, Jake and I were writing scripts and stuff like that.
And then eventually led to Letterman.
So then I got hired on Letterman. But I was not the right. I did not succeed at Letterman.
No.
At all.
You didn't get his voice, or what happened?
Well, no, not really. I mean, it was just. It takes a pretty special kind of mindset and brain, I think, to like, especially on that show at that time, to like really succeed. When I got there, you were in a room by yourself. You stayed in your office all day, 9 to 7, 9 to 8, and someone would come and like hand you an assignment, like top 10 jokes, and then you just sat by yourself for an hour and a half and wrote top 10 jokes. And if you didn't kind of produce at the level that they wanted, they were just like, all right, we got to find somebody else.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was no real like collaboration. And yeah, you kind of had to, I think they used to maybe give people a little bit longer to kind of try to find it. But by the time I got in there, for whatever reason, budgets or whatever, it was sort of like, if you didn't catch it within the first month or two, they were like, all right, next up.
Damn.
So yeah, it was tough. Like I always kind of thought, oh, I want to work on like a variety show half hour or like a variety show sketch show. But then when I got there, I was like, oh no, I'm not the guy for this.
No,
this is not how
you're a team player.
I'm a team player. And I think I just like, Ed, I had started to learn about sort of storytelling and breaking stories and, arcing out seasons. And I think I had more of a natural ability for that. So yeah, but like very happy. I mean, also when I went to talk to Rob, like Burnett, and I was like, I want to work on Letterman. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, man. He's like, okay, if go for it.
Yeah.
Like, it was, yeah, he was just like, it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was.
So Letterman, and Ed TV led to Desperate Housewives?
Or just Ed.
Or just Ed.
Ed TV is the
movie.
Yeah, yeah.
It's McConaughey.
Yeah, it's McConaughey. No. And then one of the kind of my boss on Ed got hired on, or kind of, he was a co-executive producer, like he was below the creators, Tom Spezialy. He got hired to help run Desperate Housewives, and so when I was out of Letterman, he called me and said, like, do you want to come join this show that hadn't started yet? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And then it was pretty crazy to be like it wasn't exactly like what I do exactly well, like very soapy and broad, but people loved it. And so it was cool to be a part of something that was just like
huge,
insane. Yeah. Like,
how long were you on it for?
For the first 3 seasons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was pretty low on the totem pole, so I didn't have a ton of responsibility, but it was cool to see, like, like the creator of the show would be getting interviewed by, like, Oprah would show up in the offices. I mean, it was just like a full on that first season was nuts. But it was like full on, as good as you can imagine. Like the kind of behind the scenes shit was just like, once the show became a success, like the drama was real. The drama was real. And it was, I mean, I didn't even, I was kind of knew what was happening, like whatever, the creator and the actresses were battling over storylines, and people were calling each other and yelling at each other, and it was just a high pressure, high stakes.
You went through it, man.
Yeah, no, that one was more chill for me. Like that one was like, I got to kind of sit back and like watch the guys and women at the top of the show, like going through it, like, cause when somebody, when a network senses that they have like a hit like that, then it's just like, okay, we're gonna make this work. So you two may not like each other, but you're gonna keep working together. And you guys have a problem, like, shut the fuck up. Let's make the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was cool. And I mean, I got to that was another one where it was like, okay, really learning, watching.
You moved up to executive story editor, right? For that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
what does that mean?
Nothing. Okay. I mean, essentially below sort of the co-EP executive producer, and I mean below that it's all kind of a mush of like, everybody's kind of the same. I mean, on that show it was, there was younger writers who contributed like so much. Like my office mate was this woman, Jenna Bands, who just like immediately the Tom Spezialy and Mark Cherry like knew like she could write the show, like, and she could write a couple of the characters so well, and so they would give her so much to do because she could just crank it out, you know, and like, so she was like the same level as me, but she was writing way more, like, as she should have. Like, she could just like turn scenes around that were just immediately shootable. So my point being, like, yeah, sometimes like a story editor can be just as get as much stuff on as a higher level person, or yeah, but I was kind of doing what would have been about expected of me, like pitching in when needed, writing scenes, writing scripts, but not really determining the big decisions of like, here's the big arc of the season, and, or, you know, like, it was more like higher level people saying, all right, here's what we're doing, and then help us execute it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was cool. That was like, you know, that was a totally different, like, the soap opera-ness of it, the mystery element. I always was like, oh, this is so stupid. Or, you know, at times it could feel like, oh, this is so, like,
too much,
lame. But then if it was done well, which I think it was in the first couple seasons, that mystery stuff, you just watch how much it like hooks people into wanting to keep watching the show. You know, it's just like, you were just like, well, I just want to know what happens. Like, it was an interesting lesson in sort of like, oh man, that is, yeah, a viewer wants that. Like, you can do all these other kind of like, these more sort of normal suburban stories about the women and the, you know, the challenges of motherhood or whatever, which were done well and were, you know, fun to write. But like, yeah, the mystery kind of, because every season would have some sort of long overarching mystery that they were all kind of working on together. And yeah, you just were like, oh, this is stupid. But then,
I mean, it got him.
Yeah, it gotcha. Yeah.
And so from that, you get Scrubs.
Yeah, I think
You stayed network.
Yeah, I think I worked on a couple of shows before that. Like, I worked on this show that was cool, and it just never got a real chance. Misguided, which was Judy Greer, which was cool. 6 episodes. Like, yeah, it was a bummer that it like came and went. And I worked on Reaper, which was another show that this guy Tom Spezialy had worked on, which was cool. That was like a hour-long comedy.
That went for
sci-fi.
a while.
Yeah, it went like 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and that was the first time I got to, like, you know, because when you start on when you start in sort of network shows, you're really just in a writer's room. You don't know how television is made at all. You just your only point of reference is the writers. And so on Reaper, I started to get to produce TV and be on set and just learn how it really actually works, and, you know, start interacting with crew members and seeing what it really takes to sort of put a show together, which is a whole other skill that, like, that you don't really see until you're on the set and you're going, oh, okay, yeah, we gotta make these scripts clearer, we have to make the script shorter, you know, like, you're just dealing with the actual you're dealing with what it really is. Yeah. Which is so easy. Like, I think young TV writers and myself would be like, they'll, you know, like, our job is just to write this dialogue and make it funny, and then you guys figure it out, and if it's not exactly clear, you'll figure it out. And so that was like, when you get there and you're like, they're asking you questions, or you and the director are like, what does this mean, and how should I, you know, it just makes you a better writer, actually, because you're going, how am I going to explain this when I get to set? If I don't have the answers, I'm going to look like an idiot. So, yeah.
Wonk Inc. is now on YouTube. Search for such hits as Mega Summer Hit, a slam documentary, Rage and Beauty, aka The Greatest Show Never Made, and series like Wonk News and Studio City Kings. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
So was Reaper the show that kind of made you want to be a showrunner?
I think it was the first time where
Or did someone come to you and say you should be a showrunner?
it was more that. I mean, then that was the first time where I said, "Oh man, I love being on set. Like I love making TV. Like it's really fun to be there and to figure out problems and to change stuff on the fly. And like, I'm like, oh, this is a real rush." So I was like, oh, I you know, I think I could do it. Like I could talk to actors and fix things without totally changing the script, or you know, like, I could keep things going and help facilitate communication. And yeah, it was just like you're just a team player. You're trying to help it all move forward. But no, I didn't think it really was I have to give credit. Like my agent, Matt Rice, called me and was like, there's this show, Workaholics. They're looking for somebody to help out and run it. And I was like, wow, you know, and I hadn't done it ever. And he's like, but I think this is the perfect fit for you. And so then it was like, okay, let's figure it out. And I went in to meet at Comedy Central and was pretty nervous because it was like, you know, they're asking me like, how would you do this and how would you do that? And I hadn't.
Comedy Central's asking you?
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
guys?
No, Comedy Central. Like the first meeting with them was them going like, how much would you budget for this and how much time do you need? And there's just questions I never, you know, I didn't know because I hadn't done it. So I was nervous, and so I had to kind of bullshit and make it up as I went along. But they kind of, you know, I remember my agent called me afterwards and he was like, what the fuck, man, you blew it. You blew that meeting. And so he's like, if you want this, you got to, you know, write them. Oh, because I think what happened was that, yeah, he called me. He's like, you fucking blew it. Like, that was terrible. And I was like, I know, it was not good. He's like, all right, you'll go meet with the guys and then we'll see. So then I met with them and you know, love them, and was like, oh man, like I really want to work on this because I think it's so close to what I think is funny, they think is funny, and we could really, I would love to help them try to do their thing. So yeah, I think I went back and either called Comedy Central or wrote them emails like going like, hey, I know that meeting was bad, or I know I seem nervous,
yeah.
But like I really think I can do this. Like I think, you know, I've never felt like, a show that I've never seen like a pilot that I felt so sort of like, oh, this is exactly what I think is funny. They did it, and so. Yeah, like I just give me a chance. Like I promise I'll come through. And yeah, I think that helped. But really, you know, I mean, Comedy Central smartly like trusted those guys, and kind of let them choose how they wanted to make the show. So I think it was kind of, and they were never shy about like saying, here's what we want, here's what we want to do. So I think it was them going like, no, we want this guy.
Did you meet with them before you got the job at least?
Yeah.
So so
I met with Comedy Central, and then I met with the guys, and then I think I met with Adam because Adam couldn't be there. So, and I met with the Avalon, with the production company. So yeah, it was like a long process of meeting a bunch of people.
And those, besides the first meeting, the meetings after.
Yeah, the meetings after were much better. Because I wasn't being, you know, it's like you're being grilled on like
money and stuff.
Money and budgets, and less about tone and more about like, hey, can you manage this? Which was the question, like, you know, and was the thing I hadn't done before. Like,
Yeah.
can you get this done on time? And yeah.
They told me that like what pushed you over the edge from all the other ones was a picture of you in front of like Wayne Gretzky. Because there was only one picture of your
on
you
Facebook. Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky Road or something like that with
Yeah.
a big old smile on your face. That's cool.
They're like, this guy, this idiot. Yeah, no, it was so fun. But they had like such a strong vision of what they wanted to do and what they wanted the characters to be and what they wanted the show to be. And Kyle, was so talented and kind of knew how to, they were so ahead of their years in terms of like they had been producing stuff, on their own, that they were pretty savvy about knowing like, here's what we want and we know here's how to get it. And so it was really just me trying to be an ally for them and help them navigate that. And it was just like trying to figure out what my role in that group was, because it was like 4 people had been doing this for 5 years. So it's like, how do you fit in? Where do you help? How can I help keep things going and not get in the way when it's like, all right, man, like you guys got this. I just got to make sure I'm helping you keep the schedule on time. And then if you need me to whatever, then if it's like, oh wait, we need to write we quickly need a rewrite of this draft or whatever, then doing that. But yeah, it was different than like, I think on more traditional, bigger shows, like the showrunner's role is like, I'm going to control every word and I pick everything, and it's totally my vision. And that was not at all what this was. This was me kind of trying to just help them. All right, let's all figure this out together. And so it was like as much kind of a manager coach role as like, and I would write scripts and stuff, but it wasn't like me being like, here's what you're going to say. It's like, no, those guys are going to say what they're going to say. So it was more like, yeah, I'd say coach, let's present them with a series of like, here, we got to cast this role. And I'd be like, here's the 3 ideas. Like, let's all kind of vote and pick. And if somebody felt really strongly, then we would listen to them. Or if I felt really strongly, they'd listen to me. Or if Anders like, I've wanted to have this actor on, I think he'd be perfect. Then it was like, all right, let's go for it. Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
What was the biggest difference between season 1, besides you guys feeling each other out, and season 7, when it was like everybody's kind of got a little bit of success? What was it like being a showrunner for that crew?
The season 7 crew?
The season 7 crew.
I think at that point it was more about like, I'd say earlier on, we were all together all the time trying to, in a way that, it's like, here's your big chance. So like we would work, we would work really late. We worked hard all the way through, but those early ones, it was like, you kind of had to get everybody on board for every episode. Like, are we all good with this episode? We all like this story. It all tracks. And so there was more like, there's just more nerves early on about like, is this the right thing? Because it's like, here's our first impression. Like, we got to make sure every episode is exactly the right tone and is all the same. Like you didn't want to take you wanted to take risks that so that the show would stand out, but you wanted it to be like really tight and like, all right, let's make sure what we're about to send out to the world is sort of the best representation of who we are and what the show is, and I think by season 7 we were because we know the audience knows the characters, we all trust each other more. You could kind of have episodes where one person would really drive the creative, like if Blake had an idea for an episode and we would kind of be like, all right, let's run with what Blake sees, and this is like, he has a vision for this, like let's trust him, it'll work. And I think by then you're also just going like, let's try a different kind of episode where I don't even remember what the season 7 episodes were, but yeah, let's just, you're just a little looser. You're like, man,
well, let's go back to season 4. Let's go back to season 4.
Yeah,
We Be Clowning. Let's go back to that.
Let's go back to that.
How did that come about?
That is the kind of the seminal.
That's
the one.
That if that's the time capsule episode right there to remember Workaholics.
That's right. We Be Clowning. Who's that? I think that was Anders's. Like, had really wanted to do an episode where the guys are clowns. I'm pretty sure. I mainly remember that the script was really long.
Yeah.
And we wanted it to be this epic arc of them starting as, clowns and being successful and having this slow journey where they then break apart and are fighting, and it was just like in 22 minutes, you can't do that. So I just remember, the main thing I remember, besides of course, Dunk TK Dunk, was just having to cut a bunch of funny scenes in the edit room to make
like more Snipes life
time
stuff.
Yeah. I think did that? I just remember that in the edit we rewrote. It felt like it was one of the first times that what went from like the script to then what was shot and then what came out the other end was like way different story-wise. Even like usually the stories were kind of basically mapped out and didn't change that much, but I felt like, and I don't remember the exact details, but I felt like we changed the story a lot in the edit room, just to like, we skipped a couple beats that we thought were really necessary, but then when we looked at it and looked at the time, it was like, oh, we have to just streamline this in a major way.
That's dope. You're also in pretty much every single Wonk production.
That's something I take great pride in.
Yeah. Starting from Rage and Beauty.
Mm-hmm. That was very fun.
Yeah, that was a legit role.
That was. That was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was like, I had always, I think, I started realizing like, oh man, I wish I had acted. And when I got on Workaholics and got with those guys, and, the show was so like, just put your friends on TV as much as possible. And so at some point I was like, all right, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna have a character. And it was partly just like, cause I was like, I just want to see what this feels like, so I know going forward, just what it's like on the other side. And I made a couple big mistakes. I had one part on it, or one scene I did on the show where I didn't really learn my lines the night before. And it was like a big chunky speech, because I would, at this point we'd been doing the show 4 or 5 years, and the guys were so good at memorizing their lines. And, I was watching them all day, and they would just be like, all right, what's my next scene? And, they could learn it in 20 minutes. So I was like, oh, I'll just do that, And no.
That's muscle memory right there.
Yeah. That's a real skill. So I got out there and I got through it, but it was a bumpy ride. And so then I was like, okay, just when we did Rage and Beauty, it was like, And the other thing is I'm like, I just want to come in
Ready.
like just so that you can, you know.
You play serious characters in the other ones. You're a doctor that tells somebody his wife's dying.
Mm-hmm. I like keeping it straight.
You're good at it. No, you're always like damn, Kev killed it.
The real, oh, that's good. No, it's so fun. I mean, I really do love acting.
Yeah.
I do it with my kid all day long. You know, you're just like,
oh yeah,
you're in there just playing so serious with them.
Yeah.
And it's the same where it's just like, let's just get real in this game with each other.
Yeah, let's play hard. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's play some make believe.
Mega Summer Hit, you were the judge.
The judge, yeah.
And that scene in your old house was
That's right.
Wonderful.
That one was trickier. Like that kind of free. Well, what I learned about that was because that was like, I mean, the other ones it's always been a more like traditional, like here's the scene, here's the role. And I think I like that a little better. Like, you know, like a clear, like, it's just, what I mean is that it's like a real skill to kind of, even in our scenes where it was like, it's just a free form improv. It's a skill to like, and I haven't really taken any, I've been meaning to, but I haven't taken improv classes. It's a real skill to like, okay, here, I'm going to find my point of view in this scene, and stick to it, you know, and like here's how I'm going to be funny in this scene, but then also be alive to and open to like what you're doing or what Kyle is doing, and so changing. But that was a tricky one. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm all over the place here. I don't know what's funny or good. Or,
just always look down on me. I think that's something that's a perspective to always go back to
always
that.
Come back to that.
Yeah.
I think like being an actor would be so hard, but just being a straight drama actor would be great. I think like you just get in there and you're so real every day.
Yeah.
like the fourth lead on a, you know, CBS like procedural, like,
yeah. Like, here's your documents.
Yeah.
Oh, you should have read them, but you did them. You did it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be great. So you worked on, so after Workaholics, was it Ghosted?
Yeah, Ghosted. Yeah, that came up pretty early on. I mean, kind of in the middle of the last season of Workaholics, knowing, oh man, okay, we're about to end, and wanting to like, you know, kind of prove like to people like, okay, I can do a bigger show, network, like, cool. I jumped at this opportunity I had to help the guy. I got brought in the same way with Workaholics, where I got brought in to help showrun the pilot, and there was a writer who had sold the show, and then Craig Robinson and Adam Scott, who had also sold it with him and were executive producers, and their managers and producing partners. So it was a big group of people who were looking for somebody to come in and help the writer, Tom, who was a feature writer and just hadn't done TV. And so I got brought in on that, and yeah, making the pilot was really hard. We rewrote it, 50 times. Fox was, they were spending a lot of money on it, so they just wanted it to be right, and they put a ton of, in a really cool way, the marketing of the show was awesome. It felt like people had heard about it, and they did cool stuff, but they had, it was like a lot. It's the same thing as like I had watched it on Desperate Housewives, where it's like, oh man, the people who are really at the top of this show, who are in there making it every day and having to deal with the network and deal with talent, like, they're just under a ton of pressure and stress, which is what the case was for me. And yeah, but making the pilot was really fun. And even though it was, you felt like you were just rewriting scenes over and over and over until the network approved them. Once we got to make the pilot and actually start filming, it was awesome. And And then like, yeah, just making a big network show is a real, you're just navigating a lot of things. You're navigating all the politics at the network. You're navigating, yeah, and that's a huge part of it. Like, is like making sure the network is happy. It's so different than where we had left comedy. You know, when we had left, when we had finished Workaholics, it was kind of like, by the time we'd finished, we were just on our own making episodes, and you could just do whatever you want. And that is the opposite of what, you know, the first year of a network TV show looks like. So yeah, you're like struggling, and the struggles we had on that first year was just sort of, a lot of people had different ideas of what the show was. And what I thought the show was versus what the network, I think, ultimately wanted was different. Yeah, I mean, we came in just being like, it's, you know, these two characters who go off and every week battle monsters, and yeah, I don't think they
wanted like an Office type thing.
Yeah, it seemed like that's where they landed. I mean, it's also tricky, I think, the other thing we learned was like, it's tough in 22 minutes to try to do like a case where they go out and solve like a case every week, and then to have any room for real like character development or growth or other relationships, which is ultimately probably why people watch TV more than a sci-fi case of the week. But we had kind of gotten locked into like, they're going out to solve the case. So, and yeah, we just, so much of my brain power ended up being like, does this case make sense? And
you weren't even thinking about the comedy anymore.
Yeah, we weren't thinking about the comedy, and you're not thinking about the characters enough. I mean, really, it's like, you know, why does anybody watch like The Office? Like, they watch it because they love those characters, or Friends, you know, like
or Workaholics.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's just like keeping good care of your characters is why an audience buys in. And so, yeah, like kind of, yeah, it was a struggle. And I think also, you know, like it was a good lesson for me, because I was also like, oh, I can do sci-fi. Like, I can handle this. But I'm not like the biggest sci-fi fan in the world at all. And so like I had to play catch up in terms of, oh, we're referencing this and this and this. And I had like, you know, kind of the most basic sci-fi references. And then, but when you really have to get into it and you're like deep into it, if you don't love that stuff,
you're screwed.
You're screwed. And I was like,
it's like the exact
opposite. I don't
opposite.
care about this. Like, I'm like, there's a portal. Like, who cares? Yeah. I don't know how it works. Like,
you should be geeking out on the portal.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're geeking out on Workaholics when you first met them.
Yeah. When I was like, oh, okay, I got a million ideas for this. So that was a good lesson. Like, I mean, that was a really good lesson for me going forward of like, I just want to do things that I'm, you know, can knowledgeable in and have like a real background, and B, that I'm just like super excited about from a personal level that I can buy into, you know, that I have some deep interest in. Because I think on that one, I was chasing the sort of, you know, I was chasing like the big
network,
the big networky thing, like the cool thing. And so like that, it was a good lesson of like, okay, wait, you got to put yourself in positions where you really care about this stuff, and because you're going to spend so much time doing it that like you better really like want to geek out on how the magic sword works or whatever. And I was like, oh, I hate this, you know, like, so yeah, that was good. I mean, it was a tough 10 episodes, but I mean, we had an awesome writing staff, so they kind of like got us through it. But man, the combination of sort of trying to do a really big show, trying to figure out what a show is, what does an episode look like, because you're just making it up kind of, or there's not, on this one it was like there wasn't a clear sort of template of here's this other show and let's just copy kind of the things they did. So we're trying to make that up, and then you're trying to make it funny, and if you're not super into that stuff, like it's a recipe for not a good time. So it was like, I'm proud of some of the episodes. I think we did some pretty good episodes. But it was a good kind of like, it was a good learning experience in terms of like, what do you want to do with your life, with your career? What kind of stuff do you care about? And like what kind of situations do you want to put yourself in terms of like work environment and just being really selective about like, hey, I don't have that much, I'm getting older, like you're like, man, I'm not going to get that many more shots at this kind of thing, so like let's really be careful and selective and thoughtful about what you're writing about, what kind of stories you want to tell, all that kind of stuff. So
that's what you're doing with your agent right now, just
now I've written a couple, or I'm developing a few things with friends that that are more kind of personal
TV shows.
One TV show that I wrote with a friend.
That's great, man.
It's cool. I'm excited.
Can't wait
about
to see
that.
it.
I think we'll sell it, I think, but
we'll
who
see
knows
it. No, we're gonna see it. You heard it for here. You heard it here first.
You're right. That's
bro,
good.
we'll see it.
That's right.
Well, thanks for being on the Wonk podcast, Kev.
Hey man, anytime, I'm always down.
I know, it's dope.
You call me, I'm there. I'm whatever you need.
My man. Thanks for listening. And if you dug this pod, please write a review and give us them stars. Thanks, and see you next week.